The People's Business is made possible by our partners, Solar Dynamics, the most efficient energy systems.
Good evening and welcome to the People's Business. I'm Wendy Burke. This evening, we are going to be looking at healing the challenges in nursing. Yes, hurling the nursing challenges in Barbados. And to help me discuss this, we have some members of the Barbados Nurses Association. I want to welcome first their president, Dr. Parris, Public Relations Officer Alvin Hart, as well as the Assistant Treasurer of the Barbados Nursing Association, Dr. Marion Howard. Yes, we'll be looking at some of the issues facing the profession, the things that have been done to change it, and what more they want to do for nurses in and around Barbados. So, the People's Business will be back. Stay with us. We'll be back in a bit. And we want to welcome back you, our viewers, as well as Dr. Parris, Dr. Howard, and Mr. Alvin Hart. Now, I'm going to start with you first, Dr. Parris. In terms of when we look at some of the challenges facing in the profession, what's the main thing at this point that's really impacting on you in a negative way?
Program. One of the things that's affecting nursing profession and the BN is the migration of nurses. So nurses are leaving Barbados, thinking culture that's affecting both the nurses that remain and the work, as well as the brain drain that we are experiencing.
Okay. And for you, Mr. Hart, in terms of that drain, what is being done to keep them grounded in Barbados?
A very interesting question. For many years, we've been trying to keep our nurses in Barbados. And only recently, the junior minister of health stated it is a challenge. They have acknowledged it's a challenge. But we, as the members of the Barbados Nurses Association, try our utmost best to promote
Your repetition.
persons staying in Barbados and working in Barbados. And we are working constantly with the Ministry of Health and Wellness and looking to see what we can do as a collaboration to keep our nurses in Barbados.
Oh,
But it is a challenge. We can never match what a lot of the first world countries offer the nurses.
okay. Now, Dr. Howard, you would have been in the profession for a while as well, and you would have than likely experienced that of having some of your friends decide to leave after being trained, etc. Do you think opportunities for training and upward mobility, not just salary, because people leave their families behind and so on, but do you think it is also an issue of not being able to move far enough forward after you say become a registered nurse or so on?
Yes, I think so very much because we would have some of our nurses who would have done their general nursing and sometimes for 10, 20 years some of them are not even appointed in the public service and there is a challenge to have them receive second training so that they can be promoted. I think that over the years, some efforts are being made. For example, we have just introduced the postgraduate pediatric program that has gone on for the last 3 years. And so that is one of the incentives to help our nurses to stay and to feel good about themselves.
Okay, I believe that's
Yeah.
the program with Dr. Wendy Seeley at UWI.
Yes.
Right. Now, that's just in
Yes.
pediatrics. What about
Yes.
leeway to be able to do other specialties? I know Barbados has had a history of midwifery, and we have a lot of experienced persons in that area. Many of them leave as well. Some will come back, open their own practices, things like that. But what about other specialties outside of
Right.
pediatrics, outside of midwifery? What more is being done for them? Say, for example, the people who want to elevate to the level that you and Dr. Parris are at, whereas nurses, they can become doctors.
Yeah. Um, there is no concentrated effort like a school or anything that is doing that. The individual nurse would have to apply to the University of the West Indies or some other university and get on with that kind of training for themselves.
Okay. And
And that is happening right
right now,
now.
right. I'd like you to weigh in on this one as well, Dr. Parris, in terms of your own journey to get to the term doctor. How difficult was that for you in this space?
Okay, so
Oh,
in terms of my doctorate is in education leadership for higher education. So my journey required that I do the basic nursing program, and then I did the BSc in nursing at Mona campus in Jamaica, UAA. I also then what I've done a master's in education here in at Cave Hill, and then I did a clinical nurse specialist in gerontology, which is an advanced practice nurse, and I did that at the University of Western again. And then finally, I ventured into doing the doctorate using Open Campus, which is now Global Campus, where I specialize because I'm an educator in education leadership.
Okay. And
But
you,
within the Caribbean,
mhm.
we have opportunities for nurses to become doctors in nursing or nursing practice or nursing research. And this is offered at UWI Mona.
Okay. Like, let me come to you now, Mr. Hart. Outside of being PR for the Nurses Association, you also help to manage the infectious diseases area here, but you are in charge of this center. Suppose as a young nurse, after spending about 6, 7 years on a regular ward, I decided that I wanted to become a specialty nurse in your area. Does the government make way for me through the 4-year BCC program?
Yeah, so as a nurse, you always start at the beginning, which is now the 4 year general degree program at BCC. In my time, it was the associate degree for three years here, and I must say I love bedside nursing, and I work at the geriatric hospital for many years. But I never wanted to stay at the bedside for that extended period of time, given the scenario that Dr. Marion just mentioned about person
Yeah.
working there for 20 years and that sort of stuff. So I got involved in infection control with the officer that was there at that point in time. I went off to Emory University and CDC to do a 7 weeks program that was based on epidemiology and infection control. And that just opened up my appetite. I then did my master's in international public health, and then I did my postgraduate qualification in infection control. And you would have known this would have led me to West Africa with Ebola,
Yeah.
and then to manage quarantine facilities here in Barbados. And I'm glad that you would have brought this question because I have a few nurses I know who left Barbados because it was just talking about midwifery, gerontology, psychiatric nursing, and they wanted to outside of the box. They wanted to work with dialysis units and that sort of thing. And a nurse would have left here about 2 years ago, went to England, specialized in the dialysis unit. A year later, she became a sister in the dialysis unit. And those are some of the initiatives we have to look at in Barbados to retain our nurses, because generally she would have never moved because she was only about 2 years out of BCC when she left Barbados. So that is some of the things we have to look at in our retention strategy in order to keep some of the persons that the nurses we want to keep in Barbados.
So we're looking at her in a 3-year cycle, making a jump, which would have probably taken her about 15 years to attain in Barbados
15 years, yes.
to become a sister.
Yeah.
Okay, that's interesting. Now, from the BNA's standpoint, Dr. Parris, what are some of the internal programs that you all have been running, either to help boost morale toward the whole issue of them staying and understanding that they have a role to play within Barbados's nursing space, or helping them find opportunities where they could do stuff online as well to boost their career development?
I will answer your question, but if you permit me to digress a little bit,
Okay.
because we spoke of the post basic programs we offer here in Barbados. We talked about midwifery, gerontology, psychology, and pediatrics. And I just want persons to be aware that the courses that we offer, the psychiatric nursing, gerontology nursing, and the pediatric nursing, are one of the kinds for the care. So these are, although we have access to them in Barbados, we find that persons within the region come to engage these programs because these are not existing anywhere else within the region. I just wanted to make
Okay,
that
so it's good to
notation.
know that we have some pluses, but the
That's right.
drawback is still that those pluses aren't helping us to retain the majority of our
The
nurses.
nurses. Mhm. So what BNA is looking at is emphasizing the resources, human and physical resources that are required for nurses. So we are a union and we negotiate on behalf of our members in relation to their issues as it relates to things that would help the incentives for retention. So we look at financial incentives, and we're also looking at non-financial, as well as you said, programs that can be put in place to help them um, stay within Barbados and be satisfied with their working environment.
Okay.
So one of the programs that we are looking at BNA is a mentorship program. So we are in the process of developing a mentorship program so that we can mentor the young ones. Because as you would realize, that some of the experienced persons are leaving the young ones to be the ones in charge. So we are looking to see how we can bridge that gap and help them gain a level of experience. So we are developing mentorship programs. We are also looking at partnering with tertiary institutions. One of them that we are engaging right now, we are beginning our infantile process is the open campus or global campus. So we can offer programs that persons can have continuing education and programs that will help further them in nursing so that we keep growing within Barbados.
Okay, because right now we're having to supplement and we are bringing nurses in to assist because we are still about giving patients the best quality care possible. Yes,
That's right.
and I am sure that that is something Dr. Howard likes to ensure as well because I don't think that people, Dr. Howard, would be looking to swoop our nurses up if they weren't coming fully equipped.
Yeah. So we put a lot of energy, a lot of resources into the training of our nurses so that they can be the very best that they can be. I think that it is not the training, but I think it is to a large extent the conditions of service that forces or influences a lot of our nurses to go. Because as a former tutor in the general program, and now working at the tertiary level, we do good training. And that's why you see a lot of the other Caribbean countries send their nurses for us to train them. So there's nothing wrong with the training. It is just that after the training is done, that there are not a lot of other opportunities for our nurses, especially to do specialties. And those specialties are all required right here in Barbados. And I think that that's an area we need to be looking at, getting our nurses so qualified so that they can give those patients the very best service.
And that's what we all want
Yes.
at the end of the day. We're going to take a break. When we come back, we'll be taking your calls 228-5562, 228-5563. And we will speak to some of those said conditions that Dr. Howard is talking about in terms of access to various equipment, things like PPE during COVID, which was a major issue, and the other niggling things that are impacting on our nurses and their wanting to stay in Barbados. The People's Business will be back in a moment. Yes, we're back. And if you're now joining us, my guests are Dr. Faye Parris, Dr. Marion Howard, and Mr. Alvin Hart, all with the Barbados Nurses Association. We're looking at how we can heal the nursing challenges in Barbados. Now, before we went off, we were discussing the idea of conditions. And from time to time, you will hear nurses crying out, whether it be at the polyclinics, the geriatric hospitals, or the QEH, about issues with equipment. But we do get donations from time to time to assist them in various areas, etc. You don't have to worry, Alvin, I won't put you on the spot here. I'll talk to Faye and Dr. Howard, who I guess would get a lot of feedback from those nurses who may express frustration with not having the necessary tools that they need. Dr. Paris?
We do get feedback in relation to not having enough resources, and that is something that we are looking into. We are discussing with the Ministry of Health. BNA has proposed, and not from this executive, but previous executives, that they have a procurement or efficiency commission where we look to see the things that we procure, how they are managed efficiently. So we are in the process of doing that. We are also looking at negotiation for our salaries because that is one of the major concerns for our nurses, where they fall on the salary scale, and making sure that they get correct remuneration for the work that they do. This year's Nurses Week theme centered around the economic power of care, and nurses want persons to realize that what nurses do have an economic impact, and they should be remunerated as such.
I see Dr. Howard nodding vigorously.
No, because I'm in support of what the president is saying. I don't think the maybe the public does, but I don't think that government and those persons who make decisions for nursing truly recognize the importance of nursing. We nurse the entire population from the not even the cradle, from the womb. And if you go, they live out their lifestyle to the tomb. That's that's where nurses are involved.
Okay.
Their lives.
Yes,
Yes.
because I know that a lot of nurses are now getting into the whole thing of palliative care and, helping
Right.
people prepare for that final place, etc. And one of the areas you would have been involved in for a number of years, Alvin, is also being looked at even more now than before. And that's the whole idea of psychiatric nursing. And a lot of people are wanting to get away from the stigma of it. And your nurses are being called upon even more to go into the community.
Oh yeah.
Yes, I must declare that I'm not a trained psychiatric nurse, but in your general practice, you do some of everything. And you are so true. I always say that the COVID-19 pandemic was an assessor of many things. It was an assessor of nursing, it was an assessor of persons and their mental stability, and many other things. And every nurse that worked during the pandemic became a counselor to their clients, somebody to talk to, someone to share their problems. We never knew that so many persons in Barbados had mental health challenges. So we were able to work with our clients and to see them through that period during the pandemic. And I'm in touch with a lot of my colleagues in the psychiatric aspect of it, and they are crying out for a broader scope, more assistance within the psychiatric hospital. There's still a lot of vacant posts post and additional training as well. Training. And the president and the executive is working really hard on addressing this as well. There were other issues that came out for nursing when it came to skills during the pandemic. There were some skills that even for testing, test swabbing, taking of blood, many nurses do not do that in Barbados. And I think that, that is something that we could have run with and add to a program or the curriculum at BCC to add to the skills of the new nurses that are coming out. Look at what affected us during the pandemic and what was our shortcoming as nurses so that we could address the issue for the future.
Well, I'm
So there's
glad
a
you
lot
mentioned that.
happening.
If you could just stick a pin, because in my mind, I am thinking that as long as a nurse is trained to give me a vaccination, they're also trained to draw my blood.
Dr. Howard was one of my tutors at Barbados Community College. So was Dr. Parris. And I would have let them address that for you.
Go ahead, ladies.
No,
Well,
it's just that there are different levels of skills till performance. So you're going to give a vaccine, which is an injection. Okay, so you will clean the site, having drawn up the medication, and you explain to the patient, and then you proceed to give the injection, the vaccine, or whatever it is. Yes. So and that's
so that sorry.
But the
uh-huh.
blood
So
taking is different now altogether.
It's the difference,
So
yes.
now,
that
if
is one.
you want to take blood, this is now going to be different. Blood isn't going to come from anywhere in the body, in the subcutaneous tissue, in the muscle area, in the bone. Blood must come from a blood vessel. So the nurse has to make sure that the arm or wherever it is being taken from is sufficiently pumped up so that the blood vessel is, you can see it, and so he or she is guided to put that needle into the blood vessel so that you can now withdraw the blood appropriately.
See, it's interesting to know
I
that,
just
in every profession, everybody has different levels of skill sets, and that's what makes some people specialists versus just entry level. But yeah, that was an interesting takeaway for me. No,
I just wanted
yes, go ahead, Dr. Paris.
to interject here because we have had discussion at ministerial levels as well as with nursing council and discussion in relation to having our basic level nurses being taught phlebotomy. So that would be in the future part of the role of a nurse.
Okay. Don't forget, you can call us 228-5562, 228-5563 to ask any questions you want of our panel pertaining to some of the nursing challenges in Barbados and how we can actually heal them. Now, on the topic of healing, because we don't want people to think that we're just bashing them, but the Ministry of Health did speak to some changes coming to the four-year program, some improvements they're looking to make. They also spoke to working more with the BNA in terms of negotiating packages, remuneration, what have you, to try to stem that flow of nurses. Dr. Howard had mentioned, being recognized, etc. And like today, I received a WhatsApp. A nurse, I think we went to school together, Kiva May, she just recently was recognized. Yeah, you would have taught her, Dr. Howard.
Yes.
She was recently recognized in England by the NHS for the great work she did for COVID-19,
Yeah.
and she's
Yeah.
gone to Buckingham Palace and the whole lot of it.
Yeah.
I'm sure every Barbadian nurse would want to know that they're recognized. Yes, we recognized our nurses during the COVID pandemic, and we had them as heroes, because that's what they were during that time. All right, I'm going to take a pause here and take this caller. Good evening to you. Good evening, caller. Go right ahead.
Good evening. I would like to recommend to the panel and to all Barbadian nurses a book written by Isabel Hutchinson, former head of the geriatric hospital. Mr. Hart, Dr. Hart referred to the nurse leaving Barbados and within a short while having a specialist position in England. Isabel left Barbados, became a nurse, and within a number of years became matron of a mental hospital in Barbados. But she also made the point that the training she received is not what is being practiced at the moment. For example, she makes the point that a number of people in hospital suffer from bed sores, and that was a definite no-no in her time. I recommend that book to everyone, but I also want to know why nurses have to wait on promotions or vacancies or whatever. The University of the West Indies, as far as I know, creates personal posts for people with personal skills. And I don't understand why the government's budgeting cannot allow for a qualified nurse not to have to wait on vacancies or promotions or whatever, but the budgeting allows for recognition of skills, recognition of competence. And I don't understand why our nurses who leave Barbados or who are trained elsewhere do not, sorry, put it differently. I don't understand, first of all, why there are only nursing opportunities in hospitals or institutions. I believe there's room in Barbados for industrial nursing. I don't know of any industrial nurses. I knew of only one. I don't know why nurses cannot also be involved in projects involving, for example, healthcare, health development, and so on. Okay. And I do not understand why the nursing assistants don't move on to, why are there hierarchies in the nursing assistant fraternity so that skills and competence in those areas can take them further?
Okay. We have to let them answer now. I'm going to give this one to you, Dr. Parris.
Okay. I totally agreement with the caller that when we have nurses who have specialties, there should be room for them. And the BNA has been in negotiation with the government and the Ministry of Health. And I don't know if you remember, it would have been in the minister's speech where they were creating posts for nurse practitioners and clinical nurse specialists, as well as advanced specialists. So they're making room for persons who are specialists in certain areas. So we would have at the creation diabetic specialists. We have other specialties. So as persons or the organization grows, room is made. I agree that it doesn't happen as fast as we would want to. But we have to keep to the grind to make representation for the nurses so that they can have remuneration for the work that they do.
Okay. We're going to come up to a break. When we come back, I'll allow Mr. Hart and Dr. Howard to weigh in on that. And we'll have another call that we have to get to. So we'll take this quick commercial break and be right back. And we're back. I wanted to come back and allow Dr. Howard and Mr. Hart to weigh in, but we have a caller, so we're going to go to them and then we'll see if we can revert to that. Good night to you.
Yeah, good evening.
Hello?
Good evening.
Yes, could you speak just a bit louder for me, please?
Yes, this is my first ever call
Okay.
this program. I would like to congratulate the nurses on the job that they do. They do a very good job. I've had interactions with the hospital and the nurses dealing with my relatives, and I found the nurses to be pleasant, hardworking, and professional. And I would like to give them some praise. I would like to see that they're well paid on time, and that their job, you know, that their job means something to somebody, and they're not just, a civil servant or a public servant, right?
Okay.
So here are a lot of people on certain call it program bashing the nurses and the hospital and so on, but I can testify that the nurses do a very, very good job. Asking money. And I would
Okay.
like to commend them, and I would like to recommend that they be treated properly at all times,
Thank you
especially at the
so
top
much.
units. Thank
Right.
you very much.
So there you have a large vote of confidence in the abilities shown by nurses at the hospital and a few other medical institutions across the island. The gentleman before this one was speaking to something about industrial nursing. What is that, Mr. Hart?
Right. So industrial nursing talks about nurses working at companies and so on. For instance, a very popular place as, say, Barbados Light and Power. I've had a colleague who worked there as a nurse, but she was not trained in the specialty of industrial nursing. And and these nurses can work at many different places. They can work at manufacturing places. They can work anywhere, anywhere, oil companies, anywhere. And this is my take on that. Take on that. I believe nursing is the best profession on earth, and I owe a lot to nursing. But I think, as was said, the process of expanding specialties is very slow.
Okay.
The and if we don't speed it, and the Barbados Nurses Association is constantly in discussion with the Ministry of Health and Wellness and other partners on 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 seeing what we can do to improve the specialties.
Okay.
There are nurses that work in pediatrics. I know we have the pediatric program, and they don't want to work nowhere else. They want to work in ophthalmology, and they don't want to work anywhere else. But we're going to send them to a general ward, or we're going to send them to a psychiatric ward to work. But they want to specialize. And until we start to understand how the nurses want to function and the specialties they want to, unfortunately, all the work we do as an association, some of it will go to intervene.
Okay.
But we will continue to work. I look forward to the day when the mechanism is changed, where persons can specialize in areas and be rewarded for their specialties and can function to their optimum. Like for instance, infection control. Everybody wanted infection control personnel during COVID-19 pandemic. But what is happening now that the pandemic has gone? Many facilities still do not have trained persons in infection control. And every facility in Barbados should have someone trained in infection control. So that is just one of the specialties that persons are interested in, and other specialties that we need to to run with in this country.
Okay, it sounds like you're ready to decide that you're gonna do that course at the BCC, Mr. Hart, once they agree. Now, okay, before we go to a call, I want to play devil's advocate quickly. We're talking about the training of the nurses and the specialties, but it was not so long ago that we had a situation at the BCC where a number of our nurses were failing, Dr. Howard.
Yes, we still need the specialties, okay, but we also need our basic nurses trained and well trained. I am not sure all of the reasons for the failing, but I'm glad that we were able as nurses to come together and look at that. And we have done some serious work, and the results are much improved. And we're continuing on that trajectory.
We're thankful for that.
Yeah.
Okay. Good
Yes.
evening to you, caller.
Yes.
Hello, good evening.
Good evening.
Yes, could you just speak a little louder for me?
Yes, good evening. Just want to thank Mr. Hart. God bless you and thank for all you've done during the COVID time. God bless you, my son.
You
Bye.
received your Sunday blessing, Mr. Hart.
Thank you.
I guess it is a blessing, especially when we confront things at the QH, like that we refer to as the granny dumping and all of these other issues which nurses have to deal with. Like, let's take the area of gerontology and at the various geriatric hospitals. It's not easy sometimes dealing with a person who might be suffering with dementia, the Alzheimer's, etc. And especially when they don't have family members visiting to even, be able to get a glimmer of a memory to recall so that they can have a happy moment in there. It's not easy on the nurses either, because one of the things, Dr. Howard and Dr. Parris, that a lot of our nurses do suffer from, which people don't talk about a lot, is abuse.
Oh, yes.
Not just
Yes.
physical, but they are
Emotional.
nurses, not just even the emotional part. I'm not even getting to that yet. They are some very frisky older gentlemen in these polyclinics who decide to try a thing, with a lot of our female nurses. Dr. Howard, you're laughing, but it sometimes has some nurses feeling a bit caught up, like they've had themselves in a quandary. How do I deal with this?
Yeah. I think if a patient is not behaving as he or she should, then it is for the nurse to draw that to the person's attention and to state what he or she would prefer at the time, because I am not sure that that is the reason why the patient would have come to the hospital or to whatever institution he or she is. But I think generally that our nurses are professional. There are situations that really stress you out. I mean, and you would have to be in nursing to really understand some of those stressors.
I get stories
But
from my
I think
friends.
generally,
I don't want to be in.
I think nurses do well.
Yes, to deal with it.
Yes.
All right, we have another caller on the
Yes.
line. Good evening to you.
Good evening.
Yes, go right ahead.
Good evening. I am a retired nurse, and I'm calling in this evening to sing the praises of the QEH hospital. I have worked as a nurse in various places overseas. I've worked in England, I've worked in Bermuda, and anytime I travel, I try to get into hospital situations. And I want to congratulate QEH on the work it's doing. I've worked over 30 years at the QEA, and honestly, when I hear people how they're pulling down the hospital, it really hurts. It does really hurt. Because we have so much at the QEA, and I just, John public does not understand how blessed we are in Barbados for what we have here. Our cardiac, our neurology, our renal, our pediatrics. Actually, I was sent overseas to train in pediatrics, and that is my love. So that is what I love. And I agree with Mr. Hart. Don't send me to work in A&E department. Let me stay where I am that I can function effectively. And I want to sing the praises of the QEs. On any tree, you will find a bad apple. You will find a few, but wrapping it up. We were talking about nursing, but we also have some excellent doctors.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you so much. Another pat on the back for the work that our nurses do. And Dr. Parris, you all would have recently patted your nurses on the back with the various awards that would have been given in the various areas, the psychiatric, the midwifery, and a number of other areas. But is this always sufficient, Dr. Parris?
I think we did a good job in recognizing our nurses, but that's a one-off, one time in the year. Nurses need continual um, recognition
Yeah.
as things happen on a daily basis, and they need recognition. One of the things that we are negotiating with the ministry is that each institution for the ministry would have access for nurses to have limited numbers of mental health interactions with specialists, with counselors. However, we are in negotiation with the ministry so that something is set up so that nurses have an opportunity whenever the need arises, or without a need, they may just feel, I need to have somebody to talk to today, and they have access to a counselor, certified counselor,
Okay.
so they can have debrief along with recognition. We need to put more emphasis on the mental health of nurses.
Okay, so when those breaks are officially signed off on, I am sure you will let us here know what is happening going forward. Because I mean, if basically everybody these days since COVID, Mr. Hart, are taking those mental health breaks.
Yes.
Whether it be a day, whether it be an hour, and it's now being written into policies of workplaces. So I guess
Yeah.
nurses are no different. Now we're going to take a quick break here. And when we come back, we'll look at some other issues that need to be settled in order to heal some of the challenges. And we're back. We're talking about some of the challenges. One of the things we have not looked at is the fact that we have had to import some nurses to assist. I know in the early days there would have been some rumblings about it in terms of language barriers, etc. Has most of that settled down now, Mr. Hart and Dr. Parris?
I interact with a lot of the nurses from Ghana, and or you have to be patient and tolerant because they're coming from a different society, but they have blended in well. Many of those challenges that persons were complaining about, they no longer exist. What I've realized is that they're willing to learn, they listen, and so most of them are very patient. So I see them fitting in. They fitted in well, very well, very well. And I'm speaking from the standpoint the geriatric hospital where I'm based.
Okay. And Dr. Parris?
I just want to support what Mr. Hart was saying just now, and to put it in a little perspective, because when we have a deficit occurring today, it takes 4 years to train a nurse in Barbados. So, in order for us to fill that deficit, we would need some assistance to fill the immediate deficit. So, we want to say, engage with the government or and appreciate that there, but we also need to acknowledge the fact that we would have to make room for our nurses when they do graduate.
Okay. And has that been an issue? Have we had a situation where individuals may have had to wait 2 years after graduation, perhaps to get into the service, whether it be at a hospital, a polyclinic, a old people's home, what have you? But then again, everybody doesn't have to come into government, do they now?
No,
Well,
no, we have
I
nurses
just want to
who
respond
go.
that it is not a major problem. One or two persons may have to wait, but most persons are taken
Go to
up
work.
at the same time. Um, and I also want to say that your thought that nurses are everywhere. So we have nurses that I would have taught, and so Dr. Howard would have taught, that are working in different industries, in different businesses.
Okay.
And what we say in nursing, once a nurse, always a nurse.
Always a
So they
nurse.
take what they would have learned from nursing and excel in other areas. So we
Okay.
also support that. But for those persons who want to remain in nursing, right now, the climate is that it is easier for you now to get a job.
Okay. Now we're going to take our parting shots here, and I'm going to come to you first, Dr. Howard. In terms of being able to address some of those challenges, what for you would be the salve, the plaster, the vaccine, the dressing that needs to be placed on some of the wounds that nursing in Barbados is having right now?
Okay. So we have our training done initially in the community college. And I don't know of any nurses who want to work, who can't work. Right. So there's a place for everyone. The fact that we have to bring in Ghanaians and other people says to us that we still need nurses.
Okay.
So training has to be ongoing so that we can have enough to fill all the vacancies that are needed.
Okay. Quickly to you, Dr.
Yes.
Paris.
Okay. Um, Looking at our discussion tonight, I just want to highlight the need or the move that we are moving in nursing towards the advanced practice nurse. So we have the nurse practitioner. I know for years Barbados has been trying to get nurse practitioners as part of our landscape, but the move now from the Ministry of Health and from BNA and from Barbados Community College is to partner to get nurse practitioners to be in the landscape. Nurse practitioners can diagnose and treat some minor um, health problems and would add to the landscape of medicine and nursing
Okay.
here in Barbados. So the landscape of health in totality.
Okay.
And we also need persons to recognize the clinical nurse specialists who will work within institutions to help to streamline nursing practice within those institutions. So that's the thought that I want to leave
Okay.
with you.
Alvin, you only have 30 seconds now.
Yes, for me, nursing is still the job of choice. It has transformed and is transforming over the years, and we need to move with the transformation that is happening internationally for nursing. A lot of the things Dr. Parris spoke about is part of it, but we have to open up ourselves to all the different specialties that a lot of the younger people might want to be part of the basic training. But yes, but the specialties, we must open ourselves to them.
Okay. I want to thank you very much for joining me this evening, Mr. Alvin Hart, Dr. Faye Parris, and Dr. Marion Howard, all on the executive of the Barbados Nursing Association. And we were looking at how we can heal the nursing challenges in Barbados. I want to thank you, our viewers, for watching. This has been The People's Business. I'm Wendy Burke.